All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Well, hello, all. Welcome. Great to have you in the mix. Got the crew for you. Your Thursday crew is already here. Kim is relocating from her show this morning. She does the Nikki Maduro show. And Tony's here.
Thanks, Tony.
So it's been quite the morning. I will share with you that we have many guests coming through. We certainly have a handful of guests, right, Kim? Yeah. We have Robert Scoble, who is going to talk about AI and robotics and the fact that the two may not mean the end of the world the way it's oftentimes being played out. I see a lot of potential positives to AI and robotics coming together. We'll talk to Robert about it. He's such a brilliant mind on this, and he can certainly fill us in. And speaking of brilliant minds and filling us in, David Katz is here on Thursdays. He'll join us, this 14th Amendment thing is getting a lot of momentum. The notion of removing Donald Trump from the ballot. And it's not just Donald Trump. This thing has lived before, prior to Trump. And the idea is that if you have someone on the ballot who is not constitutionally eligible to be on the ballot, it's not a so what. It's siphoning votes from candidates, obviously, who could win and deserve to be on the ballot because they have constitutionally conformed to all of the regulations. So, again, we'll talk to David Katz about this because there could be some real serious legal limitations to this. And I don't know, as a practical matter, I can weigh in on just the practical nature of it, whether you really don't do yourself more harm than good. On the other hand, if you view Donald Trump, the former president, as this cancerous, toxic, poisonous political terrorist who attempted a coup and will likely succeed the next time in dismantling a government that he was in control of, then you want to get him off the ballot any way you can. And so this 14th Amendment, which was launched, the conversation, by Republicans, by right-wingers, Federalist Society lawyers, that will be increasingly, as I say, part of the conversation. It's getting enough momentum that it will be. So let's park that till 11 o'clock when David gets here. And I think it's going to be, it's provocative. I think at the end of all of it, when the dust settles, it may not truly affect Trump's chances of being on the ballot, but nonetheless, it's, one never knows. These are definitely uncharted waters and strange times. So, I have Tony, do you have the major announcement sounder? I do have a major Mark Thompson show announcement that I'd like to make. And I'm wondering if you can stir it up there. Do you have it, Tony?
A major announcement from the Mark Thompson show. A major announcement.
Yes, thank you. The announcement comes from our...
Major announcement
Yeah.
from the Mark
Well, I think just
Thompson
once
show.
is enough, but a second time isn't bad. Oh, just 1.5 times. Okay,
For
well,
emphasis.
so the idea was
Thanks, Tony.
That you, after this major announcement, would hear something major that's in the announcement category. And this one is out of our sponsor. The official coffee of the Mark Thompson Show is Coachella Valley Coffee.
Yeah.
Now, Coachella Valley Coffee, as I've told you, they have many different kinds of beans. I grind different beans for, different moods. I like a darker bean. The bean you might like a lighter roast or a medium roast. Everything's hand roasted. And you're like, yeah, we know. And we, of course, right here at the bottom of the screen, you can see we give you a 10% discount with the Mark T code at checkout. So order what you want, as much as you want. You'll get 10% off at checkout with Mark T. And again, there's no space. It's Mark T. Put it all together. So I've gotten a bunch of email and comments even about whether or not we would have a decaf. We have not had a decaf to this point. Essentially, we've just said, go to this place. It's hand-roasted, fresh crop. I mean, it really is the best coffee on earth. You'll love it. It's all I drink.
I've received a lot of positive letters.
And I did get a lot of positive letters. And I also got letters about, will you have a decaf? Do they have a decaf?
Yeah.
So I asked the roasters down there, and they literally did this. This sounds like the kind of thing, but they literally did, because I've been in touch with them. They said, we're tasting all the different combinations and blends and trying to come up with just the right decaf to offer your audience, because we know that you've raved about our product. And they just sent me this sampler so that I could at least give it a taste before I talk to you. It just arrived, okay? It just arrived this morning, and I've been drinking it all morning. And it's terrific. It's
What's
from
it called?
Peru, okay? Decaf Peru. And if you go to the website, CoachellaValleyCoffee.com, you can see they have "Why Are You Yelling" in the upper right-hand portion of the brand name in front. Now, again, these are all, and this particular one, these are all, I was going to say, fresh crop, hand-roasted beans. And what you'll notice is at the bottom, it has the tasting notes, dark chocolate and almond. And then actually below that, there is a statement as to how you can see, I guess you can't see it in this picture, to how dark it is. Like to, whether I like a dark roast, but this is a medium roast. I think it'll appeal to a lot of people. Anyway, it's available on the website. I want to let you know it just came out, literally in the last few hours. The "Why Are You Yelling" decaf is at CoachellaValleyCoffee.com with notes of dark chocolate and almond. Try it. If you don't want to get too wired, it might be the answer. And then, as we say,
the point of coffee, like, aren't you supposed to drink the caffeine? That's the whole,
no, that's really no.
For the day? No,
no. That's like saying, isn't the idea behind wine to get drunk? No, I mean, I think the idea is to. Oh well, maybe. I mean,
depends on who you're asking.
Yeah. All right. I suppose you're right. So
I'd be willing to bet my lunch that there's alcohol involved.
Yeah. But no, I'm a great example of that. I just love the taste of coffee, and I'll drink it at night, and I'll drink it around the clock. But it's nice not to be pouring all that caffeine into your system all the time. Right. So for many, decaf is the way to go. Our "Why Are You Yelling" decaf is available now.
Why are you yelling?
Right now at
So
CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Yeah, it's very cool. I'm looking forward to getting good reviews and good reports on it. So that was my major announcement. Check it out with 10% off, and we love having them on board. They're great supporters and sponsors, and it's very cool. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
wow, I've got a lot of stuff for you. I will park, as I say, the Trump stuff until the second hour. I mean, I know everybody wants their Trump fix, but you'll get it with David Katz. And I thought it was worth noting something that's a pretty big deal, and that is Mexico is electing its first female president, everybody. Yeah. I love this story. It's 2 women have been chosen. Now, what is the very latest? This is a story from last night. I loaded this story. And is there any other breaking news on this? It's, I believe, Claudia Sheinbaum is the name of the president. Would you say La Presidente or El Presidente? I don't know. I leave it to others.
Oh, I don't think we've ever had to worry about it before. It's always been El Presidente, right?
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. Times are changing, and Mexico really vaults ahead of the U.S. in terms of being progressive in their politics that way, which is really odd because it's not in many ways culturally a progressive place, meaning there is still a patriarchy there that's very strong, male-dominated culture. Even as the women do a lot, as usual, I mean, to really sustain the culture, men, the Latino machismo is storied and is, a part of the culture for real. But what you're seeing here is two women.
For their two main political groups, right?
Okay. And
So-
this is after Lopez Obrador, who President Andres Manuel put a couple of women in key positions in his cabinet. But Scheinbaum she is I see. These are the two leading candidates, right, Kim?
One from each party. So you have
the
Scheinbaum, who's 61. She's an environmental engineer, and she was Mexico City's first Jewish mayor. And then you have, and I'll mess up the name, it's XOCHITL, Jodel Galvez, and she's an outspoken senator. So both of the major parties have selected women to run. So the chances that we're going to see a female president in Mexico are very good.
Oh, this is great. This is great.
And I will say something else, that at the same time that we see this story comes another story out of Mexico that they're decriminalizing abortion. So all of a sudden you have Mexico leapfrogging over the US and becoming a progressive, place where all of a sudden you're not going to be thrown in jail for having an abortion, and the leader of the country might be a woman. So well done, Mexico.
Yeah, a woman and a Jewish woman. I mean, that's in the, Catholicism really rules the day south of the border. And in this country, of course, there's a rise of Christian nationalism that has, and I think just in general, it's always interesting to see these countries that you think of. Now, you don't think of Mexico as third world, but there's still aspects of Mexico which I would sort of put into the category of underdeveloped, right?
Yeah.
And so you end up with, as you're saying, Kim, a situation where this country right on our border to the south has, perhaps politically anyway, evolved past the place we are. We're devolving, I'd say, taking away women's reproductive rights. We still seem incapable of pulling the lever for a woman enough to make her president. So...
Check this out for Mexico. Here's a stat I didn't know. Women were not allowed to vote in Mexico until 1953. And since then, they have made up nearly half of the legislature since 2021. Since 2021, women have made up half of the legislature in Mexico. That is not the case in the United States. But in Mexico, a woman is currently Chief Justice on the Mexican Supreme Court. In contrast, this article from NPR says the U.S. ranks 71st in the world in terms of gender parity in politics. Mexico ranks number 5.
Yeah, I mean, there you go. And you may ask, as Mackay has, if that's true, then why are so many leaving Mexico to come into the U.S.? Who's leaving? Well, economically, Mexico, while robust in terms of economic production, there is tremendous corruption. And there is tremendous poverty as a result. The money just doesn't make it down to many in Mexico, to the point, and I'll mention this as well, to the point that they can enjoy a decent lifestyle. And I'll mention this as well. And I'll mention this as well a third time now, because I just like the way it sounds. The cartels make life really rough sometimes. Yeah. I mean, there's corruption on the level that is at the highest levels of government, where you've had to make this uneasy deal with the cartels. And there's also corruption on the lowest levels of government, meaning your local mayor, your local police chief, literally your local police officer is on the take. Yep. So, I mean, we've taken corruption in this country to high art, but they have it everywhere. And I'm not just talking about being on the take. There's also real threat to life and to freedom there. So that's why many flee here. But I'd say still the majority of those fleeing Mexico are looking for economic opportunity. I mean, that's just the fact. So, but it's against the backdrop of some of that other stuff I'm talking about.
Let me circle back to that presidential election, because Scheinbaum is leading in the race so far in the polls. 44% Scheinbaum, and the other woman, Galvez, has 27%. So that's pretty good. Both of them are among the highest. That presidential election, by the way, will be held in June of next year. So it'll be a while until we know.
Thank you. And as you mentioned, they've decriminalized abortion. There's a lot going on south of the border. Meanwhile, here in U.S. land, John Fetterman, did you see what he said? I don't know if I can say this, actually. He essentially, you remember John Fetterman? He had the stroke and he had the, right?
Depression too, right? He suffered from depression.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he's a U.S. Senator now, of course, from Pennsylvania. He said he's not worried about a potential impeachment of President Joe Biden. He says the whole thing with Republicans wanting to impeach Biden is just a big circle J on the fringe right. Additionally, he argued Republicans have a fetish for Hunter Biden. Very in-your-face smack talk from Fetterman. There he is. Asked by reporters about the potential impeachment inquiry, Fetterman repeatedly suggested that it would only hurt Republicans politically, sarcastically putting his hands up and saying, "Oh, no, please don't. Go ahead and do it," he said. "I dare you. If you're going to keep threatening it, then go ahead. Just do it. It would just be like a big circle J on the fringe right," Fetterman said. He then pointed out the multiple criminal indictments against former President Donald Trump. Your man has what, 3 or 4 indictments now, he said? Sometimes you got to just know, call their BS. And of course, he used the actual word. Fetterman's a smack talker, man. Fetterman's a tough dude. Mm-hmm. He's been hurt by a couple of, physical setbacks and psychological setbacks, but wow. And I have a major story in Law and Disorder. Do you have it, Tony? How about a little Law and Disorder?
In the criminal justice system, the people,
pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care,
are represented by 2 separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law. You're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
After 47 years, convicted on, now can I say this, Tony? I'm just going to say it. I'm so sick of it. I'm really, do I have to absolutely dance around every word?
Say it.
After 47 years, convicted that long ago for a 1975 rape. The guy who was convicted and has served 47 years has been exonerated.
47 years?
This is the longest known wrongful conviction in U.S. history to be overturned by DNA evidence.
I thought
the test,
I thought the punishment for rape was like 7 years.
Right. There must have been extraordinary circumstances here. By the way, I think it's more than 7, but I take your point, which is it's not 47. In May of 1975, 2 teenage girls were walking home from school in the predominantly white town of Greenburgh, New York, when a man stopped them and held them at gunpoint. So there are a lot of stuff at gunpoint. There are all those things, Kim, that kind of increase
enhancements,
right, enhancements. Thank you. The Greenburgh Police Department issued a dispatch for officers to be on the lookout for a black male in his early 20s. Shortly after that attack, police stopped this guy. His name is Leonard Mack. And they arrested him. He was wearing different clothes than the suspect was, but they still arrested him. The Westchester County District Attorney's Conviction Review Unit, along with the Innocence Project, conducted new DNA testing in this case last year. It revealed the actual perpetrator was a man who had been convicted of a burglary and rape in Queens that occurred weeks after that crime. The man also had been convicted in 2004 for burglary and sexual assault of a woman in Westchester County. So the guy who did it actually was in their database and had a history of this sort of thing once 2022 rolled around. But this is back in 1975 when all this happened. In any case, the wrongful conviction was vacated, and Mr. Mack, now 47 years later, is set free. He's a Vietnam War veteran, has been living in South Carolina with his wife of nearly 21 years, and here he is in court getting the news.
I thank God that finally the truth came out. And now I can truly say, that I'm free.
There you go. That's, one can only imagine what that's like. I mean, the role of racial bias, of shoddy police work, wanting to pin it on someone. And as I say, now he is living in South Carolina with his wife, who has been connected to him for nearly 21 years. Wow. That's Law and Disorder.
In the criminal justice system.
Tune in.
Tony off his game today.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on the Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out there.
Kim wants to write you up, Tony. I don't want to do that.
Thanks, Tony.
I don't think that's necessary.
I would never write Tony up.
Kim has said she wants to lodge a formal written complaint.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah, that's what I said.
I do not agree, Tony. I think you're fine. Now,
I love you, Tony.
I have a quick word about the Golden Gate Bridge. We come from... I come from regular stock. Yes, that's what I wanted to say. We come from the San Francisco Bay Area in our various endeavors here. And so we like to occasionally, look back to the San Francisco Bay Area for things going on. And so that's why I share with you that, and I didn't know this, Kim, that the Golden Gate Bridge is the only bridge in California that has not been seismically retrofitted.
That's right.
Did you know that? Oh, wow. So
yeah.
Officials are finally starting this process of retrofitting. It's likely to take years and go on, this kind of budget-busting scene. Already, this bridge maintenance and everything is subsidized by tolls, right? It's the Golden Gate Bridge Authority, isn't it, Kim?
Yeah. The Golden Gate Bridge Highway and Transit District, yes.
Thank you. So this is kind of scary, but now they are going to start the process of seismically retrofitting this bridge.
It's going to be expensive. And, it's long overdue. I forget what year the bridge was built in. I think the 30s. Was it the 20s or 30s? It's been around for a long time. It's withstood some serious earthquakes.
I was going to say, it's kind of done okay, I think.
Yeah, it really has.
Okay. That doesn't mean it's not time to shore it up,
That was American engineering back when they were,
But they have to be careful how they do it because, you don't want to change the weight of it. Same thing when they added the suicide nets, right? The safety nets to the bottom. They had to be careful, like, okay, is it going to change the dynamic with the wind? Is it going to add weight? What's going to happen? So they have to be really careful when they do these things because they can't change it too much.
Let me ask my very well-informed audience to guess. Kim has sort of hinted this is going to be expensive to retrofit seismically the Golden Gate Bridge. How much will it cost? Officials are hoping, while you guess, I will tell you this, they can do it with just some lane closures and not a full closure of the bridge at any point. But this is a huge project. $300 million, says Knit One Pearl One. $1 billion, says Gil. Wow. $15 billion, says I didn't see who it was. Shadow producer Calvin Wan says $350 million. William Lundgren says $1.2 billion. So a lot of 300s, 55 million, says Nick. It seems low. I mean, the toll is almost 55 million now. They keep raising it. 1.5 billion, says Manuel. The answer and correct retail price for retrofitting and seismically fixing the Golden Gate Bridge, $880 million, everyone. That's right.
Crazy.
Yeah. And then you know what happens? They get in there and then, there's some electrical thing and they got to go, hey, can you come here for a second? We thought we could bring it in for this, but you know how the contracting world works. It's a little bit different, but...
And then they contract out, and then all of a sudden the price goes up, and then they have to redo it, and this thing has been dragging on and on and on, and finally they get somebody in there, and I'm sure that the price now isn't going to be the final price, right?
Yeah. That's certainly true. I mean, those people who guessed $1 billion, I'm with them. I think, when all is said and done, but it will have to be subsidized in some way. And you've got to figure that way may have something to do with tolls. I mean, it's an expensive bridge to travel, back and forth on. I used to travel back and forth on that bridge, just twice a day. But I mean, it was there are times, I lived in Sausalito, so it was easy from a geography standpoint, but it's expensive.
I think it's up to $9.50 if you have
right,
fast
it's close.
track.
It's just kissing $10.
Yeah.
Right, exactly right. Kim's news, and then I want to. Oh, is Robert coming after that? When is Robert coming on?
Yeah,
oh, great.
11:30,
Okay.
just after the news. Mm-hmm.
So just after the news, we'll talk to Robert Scoble about AI and robotics. If you're just joining us, we're crowdfunded and we're crowd-supported, so smash the like button like it.
With your iron
Smash
rod.
the like button for Tony. Come on.
Smashed it with your iron.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah, how about it? For Kim.
Smashed it
All right.
with your iron
and
rod.
I can go through all the kids. But it's free, and that helps us. And the other thing I was going to tell you is that, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, Trump, 14th Amendment, all the stuff wrapped up in Trump-related stuff we'll do with David Katz. That'll be in the top of the second hour. So we'll get to all of that as that rolls around. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Well, good morning to you. I'm Kim McAllister on the Mark Thompson Show, and let's start with the mayor of New York this morning. The largest city, New York, and the mayor says the largest city in the United States. Boy, this newscast is not off to a good start. Let me start again. The mayor of the largest city in the United States says, this hasn't happened to me in a while, the immigration crisis will destroy his hometown if the White House doesn't step in. Destroy New York City. Last night, Democrat Eric Adams says the city's asylum seeker crisis will destroy New York City. He added he has never had a problem that he did not see an ending to, but he says he just doesn't see an ending to this one. So,
yeah, he was pretty passionate as he made those remarks, saying, there just is no end to this problem.
And they keep busing people, more and more migrants to New York City. Let's move on to this fine fella. The judge hearing the case accusing former President Trump and 18 others of conspiring to overturn Georgia's 2020 presidential election will not sever the cases of two co-defendants. Fulton County Judge Scott McAfee yesterday denying motions by attorneys Kenneth Chesbrough and Sidney Powell to sever their cases from each other. The judge skeptical of the district attorney's plan, though, to begin a trial for all 19 defendants beginning next month. Meanwhile, the grand jury in the former President Trump federal election case is meeting today. CNN says jurors working for Special Counsel Jack Smith were spotted at the federal courthouse in Washington, D.C. The grand jury was last seen meeting a week after handing up the indictment against Trump for his alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election. And on to President Biden, because I like this picture of him in the Corvette. The study is saying just over 2/3 of Democratic voters say they would prefer a nominee other than President Biden. That, according to a CNN poll, it shows 67% of left-leaning voters would like the party to nominate someone other than President Biden. That's up from 54% who said the same thing in March.
Well, I mean, it's always with these polls, you never know how specific a poll can be, because when, again, a nominee other than Biden. Okay, Kamala Harris. No, not Kamala Harris. Oh, how about Pete Buttigieg? No, I don't think he can win, Pete Buttigieg. All right, then where are we on this? I mean, you see what I'm saying? I mean, it begins a Cory Bush. I mean, who are you now going to draft into the presidential sweepstakes that actually has a shot at winning? I mean, sad to say, but if it is Trump and Biden, I say sad to say because it's a comment on our politics. But if it's a rerun of the last election, you'd have to bet that the guy who appears more normal, less recriminatory in everything that he does, like just vengeful and crazy and seditious and corrupt. Biden would likely have the edge. He would probably win. So
I'm going to ding you for seditious. I do like that.
Oh?
Yeah.
I thought recriminatory would get one, but...
Well, I'll give you two. That's good.
All right.
Civil rights leaders are expected to attend the funeral of one of the victims of last month's racially motivated shooting deaths in Jacksonville, Florida. That's the one that happened outside the Dollar General store. The Reverend Al Sharpton will deliver the eulogy at Friday's service for Angela Carr. You can see her on the left. She was the woman who was just sitting in her car, minding her own business when she was shot to death. She was one of 3 black people gunned down in a Jacksonville Dollar General store or near it allegedly by a 21-year-old white gunman who then took his own life. So, sad situation. Students attending California state universities may be looking at some possible tuition hikes. A meeting was held yesterday to talk about an increase of 6% over the next 5 years. CSU officials say they need more money for immediate financial needs, cost pressures, and to invest in key expenditure priorities. Tuition the last few decades has fluctuated, no hikes in good economic times, but during bad economic times, budget cuts and tuition hikes. They say the next meeting takes place September 13. They're still talking about whether they're going to jack up the rate to attend your CSU by 6% over the next 5 years.
There is more going on around schools and universities. I'd love to talk about it in the days to come. Everything from bus strikes, there's literally school bus strikes that are threatened in New York and increasingly, they just averted one in California. And also the nature of the curricula at various schools is changing dramatically, and it's being seized by right-wingers. I was just reading a long piece about that today. Anyway, we'll talk about that in the days to come. Didn't mean to get off. Now, I mean, look, that's leaving aside what you're talking about in this case, which is it's going to cost more. Mm-hmm. That education costs more. So I don't know that the quality of education is increasing as fast as the cost of education is increasing.
And when you're talking about this school's CSU system costing more, that's really, other than junior colleges, if you're going on to get your 4-year degree, that's the most economical way to do it.
Right. That's supposed to be the most accessible way economically to get an education. Right. A 4-year education.
So, now they're making that even less affordable, right? Remember this guy? He was the coach who won a Supreme Court case last year after he lost his job for praying at a football game. Well, he's now resigning from his job. The highest court ruled the Bremerton School District in Washington state violated Joe Kennedy's First Amendment rights. Kennedy, announcing his resignation on his website, said he had several reasons for the decision, including looking after a sick family member. So, first game of the season, and he's out. Okay.
This is a terrific moment that you are doing this story because I wanted to do it, but there was no time today. So let me just take a moment. Thank you. I could kiss you right now, Kim, for doing this story because they made such a big deal. There was a complete falsehood being perpetrated in that they talked about the fact that this was quiet, silent praying that he wanted to do at midfield. It turned out it was a big thing. It was anything but silent. Players who didn't want to participate were ostracized, and there was fear that if they didn't participate, they wouldn't get playing time, all this stuff. But as it pertained to him, his thing was, I just want my job back. I just want my job back. He kept saying that. All I want to do is coach football. Well, what happens? He wins this case, and again, he gets all of that media publicity. A lot of Fox News Channel, a lot of OAN, but also CNN, et cetera. We talked about it here. And when it comes time to take his job, what's he doing? He's on the lucrative speaking circuit. He's become something of a star. He doesn't want to coach football anymore. He wants to go preach or do whatever. But I mean, this guy, this simple man who just wanted to coach football, the whole thing was a fraud. And this is the cherry on top of that fraud, because he's not going to go back to coaching.
No, he isn't. So what was it really all about?
Exactly.
I mean,
it was about fame and money in the end.
And maybe making a point. I don't know.
Could be. I mean, I'll tell you, the one point that's made is the attorneys who argued it made a lot of dough.
And I think also affected law across America, right? I mean, now any coach anywhere can take a knee and we can commingle church and state, and it's supposed to be all right now.
I only wish they were just taking a knee. I mean, you cannot have a church service at midfield. And I don't care how inspirational the church service means. There's supposed to be a true separation.
Apparently you can.
Yeah.
Right? That's what the court said. Now you can do this. And thanks to this guy who decided to go take it to court.
I mean, it went to the Supreme Court.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, all right.
Let's go to Raging Waters in San Jose. This Bay Area water park closing down its doors.
Oh, my God.
Looks like for good.
That ain't so.
I'm sorry to report Raging Waters in San Jose announced its permanent closure yesterday.
No.
Oh, my God. I was just getting the chlorine out of my hair.
Just after the last splash event closed out the summer season, the 23-acre water park opened in the summer of 1985.
Don't remind me.
Popular destination for families over the decades. Officials haven't said if declining attendance or revenue was the cause of the closure. They haven't said why. The company who owns Raging Waters decided to end its lease at the current site and focus on other businesses. So will it be sold and reopened? What will happen to Raging Waters? We don't know.
I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry.
Oh my God.
Huge disappointment for a lot of people.
I hope there will still be raging going on, even though there's no more waters. I mean, let's keep the rage, people. Keep it.
And we reported on this story yesterday, so I'll just follow it up.
No, this is that skull that was found in the Goodwill or something? What was
we have an update. That's right, in the Goodwill bin. New details coming to light after a human skull was found in a Goodwill donation box in Arizona.
Joe Box and Little Anthony.
Oh, no, it wasn't Joe Box or Little Anthony, was it?
Police in Goodyear, Arizona, say after consulting with the medical examiner's office, it looks like the skull is historic. Authorities noted at this time there doesn't seem to be any crime associated with the skull. It was found Tuesday in the Goodwill donation bin, and an investigation is ongoing. So it's an historic skull. It's not a newbie, right?
I see. So, yeah, it doesn't represent some kind of foul play that's recent anyway.
Someone tried to stick a fake eyeball in there. Look at that. Where's the jawbone? What happened?
Yeah, that is somebody... It doesn't look like it was treated with the respect that it
I don't think so.
deserves.
Clearly, it wasn't treated with the respect as it was dumped into the Goodwill donation box.
Yes, that was definitely.
Someone did this to spoil our Christmas.
Well,
it's really like the final insult, right?
It is pretty brutal. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. Well. Okay. All right.
Oh well. Moving on. Someone call the police and give the skull back. Thank you. Next. This report is sponsored by you, which means we rely on you for crowdfunding the show. You can find us at themarkthompsonshow.com, themarkthompsonshow.com. The Patreon link is there. The PayPal link is there.
Sure.
Merchandise link is there. Right. Even the link to the podcast is there. There's so much.
Oh, right. I didn't even realize the link to the podcast.
Chunks of chocolatey goodness on the markthompsonshow.com website. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
We have processes and protocols and standards.
I did everything right and they indicted me. I misspoke. I stand corrected. My bad. I'm sorry.
There is nothing in our history that quite compares to this.
Why are you yelling?
Did you really just do that?
Google it.
What up, everybody? It is our end to the first hour. So much going on. I saw a piece about Elon Musk that I was surprised by, and it relates to something that I think a couple of you have mentioned to me in either comments or emails, and that is Musk's relationship to the Ukraine war, especially when it figures into communications through Starlink, right? Apparently, Elon Musk, this is a part of a new biography that's coming out. It's titled Elon Musk. They spent as long on the title of that biography as we spent naming this show. Elon Musk secretly ordered his engineers to turn off his company's Starlink satellite communications network during the Crimean coast incursion that was planned last year. It was to disrupt a Ukrainian sneak attack on the Russian naval fleet. Again, this is in Walter Isaacson's book, which is being done. As Ukrainian submarine drones strapped with explosives approached the Russian fleet, they, quote, lost connectivity and washed ashore harmlessly. Musk's decision, which again left Ukrainian officials begging him to turn the satellites back on, right, was driven by an acute fear that Russia would respond to a Ukrainian attack on Crimea with nuclear weapons. And this is borne out, apparently, again, in the book. Musk talks about the fact that he was in touch with high-level Russian officials. So, again, Musk's concern over, quote, a mini Pearl Harbor, as he put it, did not come to pass in Crimea. But the episode reveals the unique position, they suggest here, that Musk found himself in as the war in Ukraine unfolded. Whether intended or not, he had become a power broker that U.S. officials couldn't ignore. And so, it comes back to what we talk about with Elon Musk and his very powerful technologies. The U.S. is essentially dependent on him in so many different ways. And in this case, he is manipulating on some level a war's outcome. Certainly a critical part of the Ukraine-Russia standoff, to be polite about the way we term it, is the Crimea. In any case, I mean, this is a guy, Elon Musk, who's on the phone literally to the President of the United States on this kind of thing. How am I in this war, Musk asked Isaacson, who's writing the book. Starlink was not meant to be involved in wars. It was so people can watch Netflix and chill and get online for school and do good, peaceful things, not drone strikes, he says. Musk was on the phone with Joe Biden's National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Mark Milley, and the Russian ambassador to the U.S. to address anxieties from Washington about this confrontation, about escalation. So, once again, you see how these technologies have outpaced our ability to even control what they do. And if you take Musk at his word, which is, hey, man, I'm not on one side or the other here. I just built a technology and now it's being used. Yeah, this is exactly what you hear on AI. Hey, we just build this machine learning thing and it's learned beyond our ability to control it. Fascinating stuff. I will read that biography. Isaacson, of course, is a great biographer. So, what's the latest on Robert Kim? Is he, have you heard anything from him?
I just texted and resent him the show link. I don't know. We're not having very good luck with getting him on the show.
Oh, all right. Well,
My bad. I'm sorry. I tried.
No, it's you tried. At some point, it's not on you anymore. Somebody says they're going to be here, and they're not. It's our first no-show, though. On the, I think that's worthy of a yes. Thank you. Yeah. It's our first guy who says he's going to be here and isn't. So, I saw also that Jimmy Fallon, if I can completely change gears for a moment from the Sublime to the
Mark Thompson Show.
Did you see that Jimmy Fallon is now falling into the, I guess, the Ellen category? You know how Ellen's people all sort of circled her at after she had achieved great celebrity, they circled her and said, hey, this is a unhealthy workplace. It's a toxic environment for us, and we've had enough. The Tonight Show host Jimmy Fallon has been drunk, dismissive, mean, and erratic to the point that he drove some staffers to ponder suicide amid a toxic atmosphere. This is according to current and former employees. Rolling Stone published this expose, and this is, here they go. They say, it has shades of the Ellen DeGeneres show. A foul portrait of a man, albeit a talented man, who did not identify, the workers did not identify themselves, the ones complaining, but Jimmy Fallon getting brutalized in this. Dressing rooms for guests were used as crying rooms for staffers.
Wow.
They were brought to tears by Fallon's mood swings. A revolving door of 9 showrunners since 2014, that's the executive producer, showrunner, right? Illustrated the uncertain atmosphere perpetuated by Jimmy Fallon. Quote, nobody told Jimmy no. Everybody walked on eggshells, especially showrunners. You never knew which Jimmy we were going to get and when he was going to throw a hissy fit. Look how many showrunners went so quickly. We know they didn't last long.
That doesn't sound fun.
The storied talk show's tense workplace landed several in therapy, prompted one to take meds for the first time, and pushed 3 to ponder killing themselves,
what?
According to this piece. Quote, I didn't want to live anymore, said one ex-employee. I thought about taking my own life all the time. I knew deep down I would never actually do it, but in my head, I'm like, why do I think about this all the time?
How awful.
Fallon has denied reports of having a drinking problem, but 8 Tonight Show workers told Rolling Stone that his hangovers dictated how a day might go. Quote, when something was wrong, we all knew how to behave afterward, which was just sort of avoid eye contact and don't make another mistake. Writers said Fallon turned criticism of a bit or a joke into a personal insult, like, quote, seriously, do you need help? But when he supposedly berated an employee in front of a studio audience, a former NBC giant even bigger than Jimmy Fallon stepped in to make him apologize. That guy is Jerry Seinfeld. Fallon chewed out a cue card worker during a taping with the sitcom great, that is Seinfeld, and Seinfeld likely told Fallon to say he was sorry, according to those who were there. That exchange didn't make it into the show's final cut. Quote, it was just really, really sad to me that this really talented man created such a horrible environment for the people there. The Tonight Show has been off the air since early May when the writers hit the picket line. I mean, this is so counter to Jimmy Fallon's image.
Good
he has
guy,
this
kind of howdy-doody personality. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, very happy-go-lucky, and we'll see. I mean,
I never felt like, while watching him, I never felt like I was getting the real deal with him. Ellen surprised me because she seemed like she was who she was, right? But he always has this, like, he laughs at weird things and he always seems very contrived in his reactions to things. So I could see that maybe he's putting on airs or putting on an act and he isn't really who he is, so off the air as who he is on the air. So I guess I'm not that surprised by this one. I don't know.
That's interesting to me because I I fancy myself someone who can kind of see through, but I find it very hard to see through the TV people. You know what I mean? People who are the talk show hosts, I have no idea what's going on. I was surprised by Ellen also, for example.
Yeah.
And I told you what an executive said to me about Ellen. Very high-placed executive. Because I said, I was shocked, but I love Ellen. I know her personally, from San Francisco. I know her, and she says hi, and it's not like I'm in touch with her, but I'm just very surprised. I said, she's really not nice? And he said, oh, Mark, Ellen's nice. And he leaned in and said, to me? I think to underlings, not so much. I have to say, I still have trouble squaring the Ellen thing because I think her heart's in the right place with animals and all this other stuff. But Jimmy Fallon, so again, I watch and I go, I don't know, he seems like a nice guy. He's a musician. He's immensely talented. He does impressions. He can play. Yes. And the stuff on his show is good, all the various bits. But my favorite personally is Jimmy Kimmel. I love Jimmy Kimmel. But he laughs
I always
at
felt
things.
Fallon
had
he'll
it.
double over and slap the desk and things aren't even funny.
Yeah.
It's not funny. It's very cheesy and scripted and contrived. I don't feel like I'm getting the real guy, right?
That could very well be true. Yeah. I think it's interesting how we think we know somebody and then we don't.
Yeah.
You know? But that's the latest on Jimmy Fallon. Again, they're off the air now anyway, so he's got time to yell at his family, I guess. whatever.
The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, you kids, pretend you're my writers. Now, what the hell is this crap you've written? Well, it's interesting to me that Mike Huckabee is still a thing. I don't understand how this guy ever got, this is the charisma bar being so low that right-wing commentator Mike Huckabee gets his own show. I think he had his own show on weekends on Fox News Channel, when he was kind of the it guy, because I think he can play guitar and, and preach the word. And when I say preach the word, I mean preach the right-wing word. Now, he might preach the other word too. But Mike Huckabee, the right-wing commentator, coming under heavy criticism now. Here's what his latest thing is. He's warning of bullets if Donald Trump should lose in 2024.
What, like people will be so mad they'll open fire?
Yeah. Oh. Here's the deal. Over the weekend, Huckabee accused President Joe Biden of trying to destroy Trump via legal actions in the courthouse rather than at the ballot box. And here's what he said. This is a quote. Here's the problem. If these tactics end up working to keep Trump from winning or even running in 2024, it is going to be the last American election that will be decided by ballots rather than bullets. Just incredible, the kind of the incendiary verbiage, the calls to violence, the stirring of the pot constantly. It's outrageous, absolutely outrageous.
Does he not know what he's doing when he says that? Or do you think he's fully aware?
I think these guys really whip themselves up into this. They get out over their skis almost, with what they're saying, with the rhetoric, and I think they feel rewarded because I think the right oftentimes does reward them for the sharper rhetoric. So the more intense the message, oddly, the more they, I suspect, seek a reinforcement of that. So that's what I'm figuring led to some of this. But he talks about, banana republics and communist regimes where political opponents are imprisoned and exiled for made-up crimes. Dude, 91 different counts. Isn't that what it is, Cam? I mean, this guy, Trump, is legit being tried for these felony charges. 4 different cases. There were 91 felony charges.
Yeah, 91.
Charges related to mishandling of classified information. We can all see that he mishandled. I mean, at some point, you can't keep playing this all off as concocted. I mean, at least give me that. But, I'm leaving out the fact that he tried to overturn the government in a coup. I mean, it's utter insanity. But Huckabee is playing it again. He's just playing to the base. So this is the same thing that you hear from Kari Lake, the Arizona gubernatorial candidate who didn't win, but is still very much in the mix. And in the right-wing rhetorical mix, this is what's carrying the day. Kari Lake said, here's a quote from Kari Lake. Quote, if you want to get to President Trump, you're going to have to go through me. And you're going to have to go through 75 million Americans just like me. And I'm going to tell you, most of us are card-carrying members of the NRA. Remember when she said that? I mean, this is, they're calling for bullets, NRA. It's
Remember when, what was it? Was it, Alaska governor, what was her name?
Sarah Palin.
Yeah, where she was talking about putting targets on people. Remember that one?
Yeah, she actually, was that campaign stuff where she put the target out? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's outrageous. Outrageous. I mean, outrageous understates it. It's just, these calls to violence are borderline illegal. I mean, we should ask David Katz. He's coming on in a few minutes. In any case, that's the latest from Mike Huckabee. On
The Mark Thompson Show.
On Huckabee Watch. That's your latest. What, Kim, is happening in the chat? Have you kicked anybody out yet today?
I have not kicked anybody out. I'm, unless I'm been remiss, I think everyone's being really nice and kind and sharing ideas. This is wonderful.
Kim, how are you?
Oh, well, again, everybody, if you're just joining us, there are maybe some new kids. And I have a special shout out in a moment. And
Big shout out.
No, I'm not doing it yet. Kim is the heavy hand of enforcement in the chat.
I'm not sorry about it.
I am laissez-faire. I really don't want to block people. I like people who disagree with me. I like people who come at me a little bit. I don't want name calling. And I'd like you to be fact-based, but I wouldn't block you. And even if you're sharp-tongued, I wouldn't block you. But Kim is...
Look at this guy.
She's in the lifeguard chair.
Kim, how are you?
Mark B. Weed Extreme, who says, Jesus equals love. Okay, I love Trump.
Okay.
Fine.
What's wrong with that?
Nothing. I think it's odd, and I don't really understand it. But if you want to say you love Trump, that's fine. Say you love Trump.
I'm not having that?
I don't kick you out for
apparently
that.
Mark B. Weed is, okay?
It's when you start stirring things up, getting ugly about it, and just, saying nonsensical things over and over again and cluttering up the conversation.
That's different. That's different.
When you're out.
Yeah. I don't mind... Again, I don't mind disagreement. I don't mind...
see, now here he comes again. But we do not sin. Yeah, he's on the cusp of a timeout.
No. He's fine. Yeah. He's harmless. Don't worry about him.
Yeah, listen, I have my people here I'm taking care of. These are people that I like in the Mark Thompson community that come here to exchange ideas and make, online friendships and connections with people, and it's wonderful. And then you have people who come in and I just hate sin, he says. This is not part of the conversation, Mark B. Weed.
Let him go. No one's responding to him, whatever.
See, the minute I say I haven't kicked anyone out, here we have somebody rearing their head.
I have no problem with him. I wouldn't worry about him. Mark, you're welcome. Congratulations. I'll see you in the afterlife. Things will go well. The word I got in aftermarket trading, okay, after the show, a lot of people watch it in replay, our show. I got this. I'm watching your show from, anybody? Denmark, everybody. Come on.
Wow, Denmark.
I appreciate it. Hello, Denmark. Big shout out.
Big shout out.
Big shout out to Denmark. So I'm excited that we have cracked the international viewership, and we are coming in loud and clear in Denmark. It's pretty big news. I wanted to share that. I got some other interesting comments, too. When you leave comments, I will read them, I will get them, and I'll try to respond to them. And sometimes in one of our shorts that we do, people will respond to it and say, well, that's not the whole story. And I'm thinking, Yeah, it's a short. It's 60 seconds. If you want to see the whole story on it, we do the whole story, but you can't, So sometimes I find, that happens only very occasionally, but I thought to myself, isn't that obvious? It's a short. You're not possibly getting the entire vision of things through a short. But love that we're making it out to Denmark, and we hope that everyone in Europe says hi to us. So.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Luis says, Kim, keep padlocking our frozen food section and keep the flash mob trolls out.
Right?
Wow.
The people have spoken, Mark Thompson. The people are on my side.
Yeah.
All right? Can I show you something? Is this okay? I kind of talked to you about it last night, but I have this, I'm going to see if I can share it. I have this video that I saw last night where, I don't think it's a deep fake. I think it's a for real deal of Donald Trump. And you kind of have to sit through a second of it to get to what he says about Hillary Clinton at the end. And it is so like pot calling kettle black situation. Is it okay if I show it? Here.
How long is it?
So I don't know, a few seconds, maybe.
Okay, go for it.
Less than a minute.
Right, go ahead.
I don't want to have a baby or a family.
That's
I want
not.
a
You want to
career.
hit the other. You don't want to hit that one.
Actually, no doubt that FBI Director Comey and the great special agents of the FBI will be able to collect more than enough evidence to garner indictments against Hillary Clinton and her inner circle, despite her efforts to disparage them and to discredit them. If she were to win this election, it would create an unprecedented constitutional crisis. In that situation, we could very well have a sitting president under felony indictment and ultimately a criminal trial. Virtually no doubt.
Really?
Wow.
We could very well have a sitting president under indictment. What? Okay. Yeah, got it.
Yeah, he's foretelling the future, isn't he?
Yeah.
That is wild. I had not seen that before. I thought I'd seen every version of him saying you can't, you can't plead the fifth. Only people who are guilty plead the fifth, and you've seen every version of him essentially making statements that he then does the dance around.
So I guess it was a big deal for her, but now he can run under indictment and the same rules don't apply?
Right.
Yeah,
right.
That's all.
Exactly.
I just want to share that with you.
Oh, okay. I'm just checking an email at the same time. I want to see if you want to do a news capsule, and then I got David Katz. How do we want to do this?
I have a news
Tony,
capsule.
does that work
if you're
for you,
ready
buddy?
For one.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tony.
Okay. So a little bit of news, and then David Katz comes in, and we'll talk 14th Amendment and all things legal. We may even touch on the Murdoch trial, which he may get a second trial for murder.
Is that crazy or what?
It's wild, and we'll ask David about that. Smash the like button like a boss.
With your iron rod.
Hit the thumbs up. Kim's news, and then the great David Katz next.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and speaking of the former president, couple stories to relay to you today. Former President Trump may try to move his Georgia election case to federal court. His attorneys formally notified the judge in the case of the potential move today. Doing so could help Trump get the charges thrown out by invoking immunity protections for federal officials. And Trump has just less than a month to make an official decision. Several co-defendants in the case are attempting to have their cases moved to federal court. Trump was indicted, of course, for his alleged efforts to overturn his 2020 election loss in that state. And Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger is rejecting attempts to keep former President Trump off of the 2024 ballot. Several groups trying to keep Trump from ever running again by invoking the 14th Amendment, which says anyone engaged in insurrection or rebellion is ineligible to hold office. But Raffensperger told the Wall Street Journal removing Trump's name would only reinforce the grievances of those who see the system as rigged and corrupt. Trump infamously called and asked Raffensperger to find him enough votes to win Georgia in 2024.
This is what I was saying before, though, that I felt, in addition to the problems and limitations as a practical matter, that you may not help yourself by getting rid of Trump. It only feeds the conversation about how the body politic doesn't really work legitimately in America anymore. I understand it would be a legitimate use of the Constitution. Please don't misunderstand me. But again, we become, in the world of grievance politics, so beholden to a conversation that has to bend over backwards to allow this seditious party increasingly to gain, at least a fair hearing, that anything that seems as though it takes away that fair hearing is something that we shy away from. And in this case, it would feel as though it's unfair to many to remove him from the ballot. Let him be on the ballot, let him lose. But as I was saying at the beginning of the show, and then I'll stop, just if you feel as though, no, he represents a serious threat, he engineered a coup that didn't work out, and he will dismantle government such that he can remain in power, and his corrupt style of governing can rule the day unchecked. If you feel that, you feel the danger is so significant that, hey, tough, we're playing by constitutional rules. He's guilty of harboring an insurrection, probably helping to plan an insurrection. He's out. Can't be on a ballot. That's what it boils down to.
Why do we have the 14th Amendment and the clause in there if we're not going to
use it?
Enact
exactly.
It, right. What's the point of it then?
No, I think that again is a legitimate argument. I'm just kind of playing out both arguments, but you're right. I mean, that's precisely it. It's like, hey, I don't care. This is the Constitution of the United States, and he will abide by it, and we will abide by it, and states will abide by it. It is going to be state by state, though, as I told you yesterday. Our elections are state by state. So you'll have to go Secretary of State and governor by state, by state, by state. And, obviously the key states are swing states, but if you get them off the ballot anywhere, it would be significant in terms of the effect on the Electoral College vote.
It's either the law or it's not. It's not the law because you feel like enforcing it today. Either we have the Constitution for a reason, and either we stand by it. Is it just because, it's Trump, so we don't want people to get upset? No,
yes,
it's either the rule or it's the rule.
No, you're of course right, but it exists. These rules exist in a real political environment that's potentially volatile. I'll give you another example from Trump. He is out there, even though he's been told not to make any threats and not to make any comments that could poison the jury pool. He is out there doing what? Making threats and poisoning the jury pool, talking about the incompetent judge, talking about the incompetent prosecutor, talking about the fact that it's a witch hunt. This isn't like a week ago. This is like within the last day. So he is clearly doing things that any other defendant would never be able to get away with, Kim.
We'd be back in the holding cell. They'd be like, we told you, don't do it.
So this is the point. He's not like any other defendant, and he's not being treated that way.
He should be like any other defendant, and he should be treated that way. He's not special. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is facing criticism from citizens accusing him of enacting policies that made the recent Jacksonville shooting possible. He had a heated exchange with an audience member at a news conference today. A man blamed DeSantis' policies for hurting people like him. The August shooting, of course, left 3 black victims dead. The man also brought up Trayvon Martin, the black teen killed in 2012 in Florida, before DeSantis interrupted him, saying he wasn't involved in that incident. DeSantis said, "I'm not going to let you accuse me of committing criminal activity." Okay. The FBI is seeking some of the help from the public. They want to find this guy. He's a man suspected of taking part in the storming of the U.S. Capitol on January 6th of 2021. His name is Paul Bolosic. He also goes by the name Jeff Thomas Redding. He has ties to Southern California, Mexico, and also Southern Europe. The FBI believes he was out on the front lines of the group storming the Capitol building via the Lower West Terrace tunnel. They describe him as 6 feet tall, about 155 pounds, brown hair, hazel eyes. In November of 2021, he was charged with obstruction of an official proceeding, tampering with documents or proceedings, obstruction of law enforcement during civil disorder, theft of government property, destruction of government property, and trespassing. So the FBI says anyone with information about Bolosic's whereabouts is urged to contact them.
Wow.
Yeah. Forbes out with its annual list of the top colleges. And who is it this time around? The top national colleges and Southern California schools have well represented. Of 500 universities across the country, 22 schools based in Southern California made the grade. The highest ranked was UCLA at number 7. USC came in at 14 and UC San Diego 21. The top 5 schools on the list, though, Princeton, Yale, Stanford, MIT, and UC Berkeley. It's always the same suspects, right? Yeah.
Good list to be on.
It is. I'll take it. A series of billboards is going up around San Diego targeting anti-Semitism. The goal of the billboard, use humor to raise awareness. The humor flies in the face of grim circumstances. The Anti-Defamation League reports anti-Semitic incidents in California jumped from 367 in 2021 to 518 in 2022. This inspired Archie Goetzman, co-founder of the nonprofit JewBelong.com, to put up some clever billboards. Some of them say, "So you eat bacon? God has other things to worry about." Another one says, "Judaism, come for your girlfriend, stay for the lack of hell."
Oh, that's right. There's no hell in Judaism. Right. That's right.
I mean, what's not to like? There is lastly, this Louisiana company is patenting the world's first liquor-based hot sauce. Swamp Dragon Hot Sauces has a new concept that replaces vinegar in hot sauce with booze. Owner Matt Beeson says due to there being no vinegar in the sauces, they can be used in a wider variety of food offerings, including dessert.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
He says the Swamp Dragon sauces are 20% alcohol. They've been approved for all ages by the U.S. Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau, non-beverage laboratory. If it's 20% alcohol, how can you approve it for kids? Come on.
Yeah, that seems a bit...
I'd be willing to bet my lunch that there's alcohol involved.
Yeah, a little alcohol, maybe, even in the decision-making process.
It says the company is continuing to work on further liquor-based hot sauces like bourbon, rum, and tequila-based sauces. You do you, Mr. Beeson. You do you.
Wow. Yeah.
This show is crowdfunded, which means we do rely on you. So you can find us at themarkthompsonshow.com. Patreon link and PayPal link click-throughs are right there. I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Shadow Stevens. This is The Mark Thompson Show. Keep it to yourself.
Who's Mark Thompson?
He is the highlight of most weeks. I know. I'm excited that he is here, the former federal prosecutor. Now he works for the defense. He's the great David Katz, everyone. David, hello, sir. Thank you for joining us. Wow, there's so much to get to. I want to get right in. This 14th Amendment thing has picked up momentum. It was originally, I think you look good with the tie loose like that. You look like a working attorney.
Okay.
Which is what you are, and I appreciate you taking time out to talk to us. So this 14th Amendment has increasingly gained momentum. The constitutional argument suggesting that Donald Trump could be removed from or shouldn't appear on ballots nationwide because of his insurrectionist leanings and what he's been involved in. And I wonder if you could just set the bar for what would be possible and how likely it is to happen and how it would go state by state, is what I was saying before.
Well, I thought that the Mueller investigation was going to go somewhere, as you may recall. And then we had the January 6 hearings and all of that. And so I don't mean to seem pessimistic about this getting the goal of Trump not being able to run, but I'm very pessimistic about that because there's a couple of things to take into consideration. And a little bit of it is the history. You know, we had a true insurrection. You know, we had a civil war and we had the secessionists who actually left the Union. And they were very proud of it, and they signed things, and there was all this proof that they were secessionists. And then when they tried to get right back into power after the Civil War, you know, rejoin the Union, there were obviously questions about whether some of these secessionists should be allowed to run for federal office, for state office, and so forth. And then there was actually an amnesty because, as people will recall, unfortunately, Reconstruction kind of ended up going nowhere. We had Jim Crow in the South for all those years. And there were amnesties for the insurrectionists. And so they were allowed to pretty much rejoin government. So some people say that all of that law about the 14th Amendment and about excluding insurrectionists is really not even in force, even if you had some proof, a compelling proof, legal proof that Trump was fomenting the insurrection, part of the insurrection. Even that wouldn't bar him because the law doesn't mean what people think that it means. Putting all of that aside, they don't have proof. They don't have, Mark, a criminal conviction of Trump for insurrection. They don't even have a civil finding, that's been appealed and been through the system that he's liable for insurrection and for not tamping it down. So while all of us have seen this in real time, we saw this on January 6th, that he didn't tamp it down. We saw what happened. We saw the marauding. We saw the speech that he gave. Can you really just say one time, go peacefully, and that exonerates you from every inflammatory, incendiary statement that you made and that you had your cronies make? But the problem is that there's no proof. And at the end of the day, even looking at it, we've talked about this, that after Merrick Garland finally got around to putting in a special counsel, even the special counsel did not file any charge which was scarily Trump fomented and incited the insurrection. Trump sat back and committed an affirmative act of insurrection by not tamping down the insurrection for 3.5 hours. He sent out an incendiary note while it was going on about Pence. But he's not even charged with any of that kind of stuff. So the idea that someone is really going to make a successful petition to the Secretary of State, a Democrat in Colorado, and have him keep Trump's name off the ballot, Trump will litigate it. He'll probably win. He'll probably crow endlessly about his victory against the Democrats, who are again engaged in election interference, trying to keep his name off the Republican ballot. And then I think in the final election, if it ends up being Trump against Biden, I just don't think that there's a basis, Mark, to keep his name off the ballot, because by that time he will not have been convicted or had even a civil finding that he engaged in insurrectionary acts. We kind of all know that he did it, but we have a legal process. And the last thing is that this is a slippery slope. If you start to go down this road, what's Colorado supposed to do? Have an evidentiary hearing at which they're going to determine whether he was or was not, inciting insurrection or participating in insurrection. So the one person who's actually been excluded was someone who was criminally convicted of insurrection. And the judge said that he would be excluded from holding federal office. I don't think he even bothered to appeal. That makes a lot of sense. But Mark, you can see legally how different that is from some Secretary of State being asked to take Trump's name off of some ballot, either for the Republican nomination or in the general election. And what would be the legal basis for doing so? And how would it possibly stand up, since that would be appealed? And there'd be a huge legal effort and expense by Trump to beat that. And some poor state Secretary of State's office would be defending it. And so I just don't think that this is a road that they ought to go down. And I know that some professors said that, and they have a lot more degrees than I do, and they have academic tenure and everything else. But that's why I think sometimes, frankly, the opinions that I express are more really grounded and down to earth and right, not wrong, rather than, right or left, because I think that they've got this sort of, I think, what do they call it, where they all say the same thing, they have that group think, that group speak in some of these academic institutions. I just think that they do, and that the two professors from very esteemed legal schools wrote this opinion piece. I don't think that it stands up, and I don't think it's going to happen. And I think people should put their efforts. I used to say this with Pat all the time: organize, vote, beat Trump at the polls.
Yeah. You make such good points, and you do always just call balls and strikes, which is one of the reasons we like talking to you. But it's weird how just that conversation, and then I do want to move on, but that conversation around this, and the crew, the Ethics in Washington group, Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, they sued, and they are suing in Colorado court to have Trump declared ineligible. And then the conversation, because of, as you said, these two Federalist Society guys, so they're right-wingers, making this point that he should be removed, this begins to feed a rhetorical momentum. Then the question is asked in media, and you have in Arizona the Secretary of State saying, hey, I'm not sure sure, we haven't decided on this. You have in Michigan them talking about it as well. I mean, again, they're dignifying it with a conversation. They are not dismissing it out of hand, and that creates its own momentum. So I think that's what's kind of happening nationally right now. So,
you need a stronger record. You need a stronger record than that we sort of all saw it and we know what happened. You need a stronger record that he actually engaged in insurrection.
What happened in court yesterday is there was an attempt to, is it called severing the case, where you're separating yourself? I wonder if you could speak to that yesterday's.
That one didn't get reported very well because it's real inside baseball, and it's what I do for a living. What I've done as a federal prosecutor, this is like the meat and potatoes. And usually, you talk about a cocktail party and people's eyes just glaze over. But when it's Trump and his minions, it really is interesting stuff. So I think that this Bonnie Willis down there made a huge mistake. I guess it's going to help her get reelected, but to charge all 19 together. And then she adamantly stands around and says she's somehow going to try all 19 together. And everybody says the emperor has no clothes. You are not going to try 19 together. Why don't you get off it and figure out a way that really makes sense? Different bins. Maybe you're going to try 6, and here's why those 6 are related. Try another 5, and that's why those 5 are related. But insisting that there's 19 is really preposterous. And I think people who are calling balls and strikes are saying so. So what's happened is that 2 or 3 of them were federal employees at the time they got a federal paycheck. That's former White House Chief of Staff Meadows. That's Jeffrey Clark, number 5 or 6 official at the Department of Justice in Washington, who supposedly was going to help Trump. He was going to vault over the others, and he was going to issue the opinion that there was monkey business in the election, and then the Republican Congress members were going to take it from there. He was more than willing to do that. Everyone else threatened to resign. And Trump at the last minute said, you know what, this is not going to end up working out. So he didn't, he pulled the string at the last minute on this guy, Clark. And there's 1 or 2 others who are federal employees, not deputized, not Giuliani was the president's private lawyer, but who were actually real federal employees, got a paycheck at the time. I believe ultimately they're going to go to federal court. And that's confused people because there's a part of this case that I think is going to go to federal court. The judge speculated at the televised hearing. Does that mean everybody goes to federal court? It's an interesting question. I think at the end of the day, the others do not go to federal court unless they make a motion for removal. I don't think all 19 get removed because 2 get removed. So I think the 2 probably hard call probably end up being removed. That leaves the 17 in state court. Those who remain in state court have a right under the Georgia Speedy Trial Act to a truly speedy trial. It's not like the Federal Speedy Trial Act for people who know that, or lawyers out there, or people who've had a relative who was involved in this. You don't have a true right to a speedy trial in federal court because it's a right subject to excludable time. And first of all, almost every defendant wants excludable time. Everyone says they want a speedy trial, but what they mean is a speedy trial if it goes my way. If it's a speedy trial that goes God only knows what way, they say, I'm out on bail, I'm living my life, why don't we kick the can down the road, right? But you've got a guy, this Cheeseborough, no one knows how to say his name, even his own lawyers, but I'm going to say Cheeseborough because that's what rolls off my tongue. This Cheeseborough guy is the rare guy. He has quite an esteemed background. I think this is a guy who went to Harvard Law School, and he worked along with Professor Tribe on the Gore challenge. So he really knows something about these presidential challenges. But the idea is that this was such an outrageous opinion about these alternate electors that he couldn't have really believed it. He had to this is sort of the dark arts of constitutional law, Mark, and that he was smart enough to know this issue so well to know that his advice was BS. And that's actually going to be fairly hard to prove. It's going to be a very interesting case. And he hoped that he was going to get his reputation back, have this early trial. I don't know whether he's getting funds from one of these PACs or something, but think how it's in their interest. If the headline were, Trump lawyer, one of the 19 actually went to a trial and won, was acquitted. Forget what the issues were. Forget who the defendant was. Just think of that as an optic. Think of that as a propaganda point for Trump. So I think the idea was that everybody was pretty happy. Everybody. I mean, Trump was happy, and this guy was happy that he was going to go to trial. They'd have a preview of the whole trial. And the funny thing about it was he's got severed from the others. He's going to have his own speedy trial if he sticks to his guns and really gets ready by October 23rd. But this Sidney Powell ended up deciding she wanted the same thing. And she's widely perceived as a nut. as somebody said, Cheeseborough had a great strategy until he got linked to a lunatic. So he is now linked to a lunatic, namely this Sidney Powell, and he's looking at going to trial with her. So he wanted to get away from the others and also away from her. He got severed from the others. He didn't get severed from her. That's going to be a really interesting televised trial if it goes on October 23rd.
Well, she truly was serving up the wildest various scenarios that she claimed she had evidence for. So now I really want to even more maybe get into the weeds with you. So tell me why he couldn't successfully sever himself from Sidney Powell. Why did the judge potentially say, no, you two together, because is it because you did the same dance? I mean, you've kind of described the distinction between them, but it must be some similarities, right?
Their lawyers did a really good job of describing the similarities, basically saying that this is an issue of constitutional interpretation with experts, the Cheeseborough trial, and then the argument that no, there'll be so many people who disagreed with Cheeseborough, so many people who said that Cheeseborough was putting the cart before the horse. He's getting alternate, slates when there's no basis to have an alternate slates. The alternate slates are for when you are winning something or you're on the verge of winning something. And it's like, wait a second, if this judge really does knock out the Biden slate, who's gonna vote for Trump? There is no Trump slate. We need to have an alternate slate ready to go if we win in court. But this was being done at a time when they'd lost 60 challenges in court. They were not on the verge of winning either in court, Mark, or even winning in front of the state legislatures, not even the Republican state legislatures or the Republican office holders who wouldn't stick their neck out that far for Trump. Cheeseborough apparently would stick his neck out that far. It's going to be a really tough trial. That one could go either way, sort of academic, not Sidney Powell. Sidney Powell, her whole, like you said, her whole thing, Hugo Chavez, and, he set this thing in motion, and Dominion supposedly got these machines, and they were being put in all these different states. And whenever you cast a vote for Biden, Trump, it registered a vote for Biden. Of course, it didn't malfunction for any of the Republican office seekers who won, but it malfunctioned just it was all craziness. What she actually did in Georgia, supposedly, was she went to this little county down there after January 6th, after even the diehards knew that the war was over and that they had lost and their transition was on. This was a desperate last move to, I think they're saying down there in Georgia, the prosecutors are, to actually seize some of the machines and to show from the machines that supposedly this Hugo Chavez thing kicked in on the machines, to prove this old point that they'd been banding about that they never had evidence for. And that she had to do with that. You could see how dissimilar the two of those are. But to answer your question, it comes down to the judge's discretion. This idea of whether the judge is going to sever two people from each other, there's a lot of discretion. Most judges don't want to do it because it means that they have two trials instead of one trial for two people. They have two trials for two people. If it's the same judge and they're saying it's going to be a very long trial, it's, that's all the judge does. He tries a 4-month trial and then he tries another 4-month trial. Now, I want to talk about this point because I think it's so important, Mark, about what happened. This is why I don't like RICO. This is why I think that the Georgia legislature will go back and deal with RICO. RICO is a monster, okay? And the argument's made clear what a monster it truly is. By charging RICO, by charging this racketeering enterprise, the prosecutor's position is that they're entitled to show this racketeering enterprise, all of it, beginning to end, everyone who was in it. So at a minimum, it means that if you've only done a minimal number of things, you have to sit for a 4 or 5 month trial. Maybe you have a life, okay? But that's 4 or 5 months. Most people don't want to waive their appearance. I mean, they're going to be, charged with a felony or convicted of a felony. Maybe they're going to be sentenced to 5 years in prison. You don't have anything more important to do, but the reality is you should have a 1 or 2 week trial if the events that really pertain to you are things that can be tried in a week or two, not go for a 4 or 5 month trial. How can any normal person pay an attorney for a 4 or 5 month trial? Start to add up the billable hours, right? Day after day after day of having this lawyer in trial. And they insist that they're entitled to put that on, even in a severed trial. Now, that to me, that can't be the law. I think a judge can always decide that evidence is more prejudicial than probative. And if it all has to do with other people that you don't know, that you had nothing to do with, the fact that you were in this enterprise to a very small extent doesn't mean that they have a right to show the entire enterprise and drag everybody that they charge, innocent until proven guilty, through a 5 or 6 month trial. And one last thing I want to say, this prediction that this is going to be a 4-month trial, I don't believe it, because when Fani Willis went after the school teachers over the cheating scandal, which when you think about it is a pretty weird, just off the bat, you go up to a person on the street and say they all got charged with being racketeers. They go, excuse me, I must have heard you wrong. They all got charged with racketeers, these school teachers, but they did. That trial was 8 months, Mark, and it wasn't with 19 people. So that's the thing about this Fani Willis. She's starting to sort of hit people as someone with a political agenda to get herself reelected and to make all of these claims, including in court, that can't possibly be right. So it'll be very, very interesting to see if this speedy trial really happens, this televised trial. But I warn people, it may be not only very long, very boring, but it may have an acquittal at least of Cheeseborough. I wouldn't bet on Sidney Powell. So there's my Catsadamus. There's my Catsadamus.
That's our Catsadamus for today.
Maybe Cheeseborough, don't bet on Powell to win anything.
Boy, you make such a good point about RICO generally, because we're not typically exposed to what's involved here. We're all learning about RICO. We know that I think they got Al Capone that way. They got other mobsters that way. They've got big drug dealers that way, right? But in this case, as you say, the underlings, the guy who was just asked to move a box or whatever, or to in this case, surrender or erase certain materials, whatever. That guy who is a person who's making, middle class wage now has to lawyer up and show up. Is it a way? And then I want to move on from this. But is it a way to extract testimony and flipping from some of those people, the lower on the rung kind of people? It seems like it's almost designed for that.
Well, it's designed to get them to cooperate really unfairly. I mean, think about a person who's innocent. Let's go with the cornerstone of our liberty, what we fought a revolution over, all those kinds of things, right?
Sure.
This is what makes America great, that the fact that the government wants to get you, number one, they can't interrogate you. You have a right under the Fifth Amendment. I say this to my clients from other countries, and that's just something that they don't have in other countries. We have it in America. They cannot interrogate you and make you answer. You can say, I have a right under the Fifth Amendment not to answer your questions. Talk to my lawyer. Of course, your lawyer's not going to talk about the case either, the particulars of the facts. But that you have this Fifth Amendment right is so important, and that you're presumed innocent is so important. And, I totally get it. Trump has gotten away with everything. And now all of a sudden, people like me who are civil libertarians point these things out. And it's like, but yeah, okay, so Trump's going to get away with it again? A friend called me on the phone. I don't know if I can, I'll use the word. Let's say the word in Yiddish is a jerk, okay? This jerk's going to get away with it? Why do you go on TV and say this jerk may actually get away with it? Well, because this jerk has the same rights that other people do. And that is the strength of America, that this jerk has the same rights that other people do. And, he never treated people, in my opinion, fairly. He was more than happy to railroad people. He was more than happy to get people. I still want to know how his two enemies at the FBI got picked for the most intrusive IRS audits ever. There's a mathematical chance, 1 in 7 million, that they both got picked for that kind of an audit. So I know Trump loved to dish it out. He loved to dish it out dirty, unconstitutional, vindictive. But, the greatness of our country is that he gets due process.
Go ahead, Kim, and then I have a follow-up.
I'm going to lose so badly right now because I'm going to try to challenge David Katz, and I'm going down. I know that going into it. But I'm thinking about the 14th Amendment. And to my knowledge, it doesn't say you have to be convicted of insurrection or you have to have been found guilty in a court of law, right? Whatever designation that any state wants to use to say, you're an insurrectionist, we choose to kick you off the ballot. Here's what I wonder. Whether that's right or wrong, you can argue. You could say maybe we need to have a conviction. Fine. But we don't right now. That's not the rule. So say Colorado, as an example, kicks Trump off the ballot. He sues, but by the time he sues, it's too late. The vote has happened. His name wasn't on it, which means he loses the election. What I'm wondering is if it's worth the lawsuit that will follow thereafter, because we've seen Republicans play extraordinarily dirty. So maybe it's time for Democrats to play dirty like this as well. The entire nation will then thank that state that keeps this horrible person from further destroying our country. Is that not worth it? Could that not happen?
Well, number one, I just don't think it's a legal matter that it will end up, happening. I just don't think so, Kim. I don't like the precedent in general. I mean, somebody could decide that, I don't know, you remember the protests after George Floyd was killed, right? And you could certainly argue that the thing in Portland, Oregon got to the level of an insurrection, and so did some of the others, right? And that anybody who was okay with that, right, okay with that supposed insurrection, you're going to not let those city council members run again. You're going to not let all these people run. I mean, someone's opinion of what causes an insurrection, it seems to me that's very hard for a municipal authority or a state authority to say, okay, those are the standards, okay? So if Colorado says, Kim, we decide that standard. We decide who's an insurrectionist, okay? First of all, it's not the easiest term in the world. I think the other thing is rebellion, Those seem to have kind of the definitions they had in the 19th century. But if you say that the marauding of the Capitol was an insurrection, it was a rebellion, right? That's sort of, it makes you think more of the Civil War, what they did as being an insurrection and a rebellion. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure that it really fits. But I guess the problem is, how would you adjudicate it? And this idea that things go slow, when Trump wants litigation to go slow, it seems to, the clock starts to go backwards. It took 2 years and something and 2 trips to the U.S. Supreme Court to get his income tax records, okay? But when he wants it to go fast, it can go very, very fast. He'll have great lawyers. They'll jump right on this. This will not be decided sometime after the election. This will be decided the next day with a request for a temporary restraining order allowing his name to be on the ballot. And if the officials wait until the last minute and try to issue their order and keep his name off the printed ballot, they'll look terrible. So they'll have to decide very soon, let's say 2 months before the ballot gets printed, he'll have his motion for a temporary restraining order the next day. That will also go to federal court, because I think at the end of the day, it's for a federal election. He'll say it determines who has the federal nomination. So I think a federal court will rule in his favor. And the Supreme Court, he has at least 6 votes on the U.S. Supreme Court, to which it will get to very, very fast. And whichever Secretary of State will not be thanked by the grateful public who kept this maniac out of the White House yet another time. Thank you, Lord. Okay. I think it'll be just another, election interference. The Democrats try to, pull the wool over your eyes, but the courts figured it out.
That'll be the media spin, but you're making the bigger point, which is that legally it just won't stand up.
It won't work. It won't work, Mark.
It won't work.
I'm looking at, though, it shouldn't have worked for Republicans to say, oh, we have a lame duck president. We don't consider your Supreme Court nominee, that you've put forward, because we don't think you have enough time left in office for it to matter. So in that, if you look at the way that played out, then maybe making this declaration that Trump's name is off the ballot, the day before it goes to print, it might be a bad look, but hey, they play dirty. Why not?
They do throw heat. They're ruthless. It's true.
Kim, I had thoughts on that one too, and I haven't really had a lot of time to, prepare my argument on this, but since we're talking about it, I wondered whether Obama should have said to McConnell, okay, you don't really understand that I'm willing to play hardball on this, okay? Mm-hmm. So in a month from now, I'm going to put Merrick Garland on the U.S. Supreme Court with a recess nomination. We're going to have 5 votes to 4, the first time the Democrats would have had it in decades, okay? And then until something else happened, I guess until the end of the term. Now, McConnell would have tried to counter move and say, well, we're not really in recess. You're not allowed to make a recess appointment. If Merrick Garland wouldn't have done it because he's such an institutionalist, he would have said, well, I don't want to be in the middle of a controversy like that. Then Obama says, look, I have a wonderful, young, brilliant lawyer that I am going to put on the U.S. Supreme Court. Believe me, in all of America, he would have found a young, brilliant, liberal lawyer who would have been willing to be a recess appointee to the U.S. Supreme Court and say, well, that's it. I'm going to put that person on there, and the person's going to start ruling on cases. And I don't think there would have been anybody to remove that person. Who's going to remove the recess appointment on the theory that he wasn't entitled to make a recess appointment at that moment? Guess what? He'd have 5 votes on the U.S. Supreme Court against 4 that would say the recess appointment was just fine, including that young attorney who would have been on it. That was not Obama. That was not the president that we had. He had so many, I thought, virtues and good things about him. If you wanted that kind of combativeness, it wasn't there. And then he was, he also wasn't willing to, you can imagine LBJ, suddenly there wouldn't have been a single delivery in the state of Kentucky, right? All the federal governors would have gone completely around the state of Kentucky. He would have gotten into it with McConnell, but that was also not something that Obama was going to do, and maybe not something that he should have done.
Right.
No, this is so great. I love that take, and I've not heard it before. And I want to ask you a quick follow-up on that. Just with a recess appointment to the Supreme Court, what would have been required for removal of that justice?
We can talk about that next time. I haven't researched it that much, but it would seem to me. I mean, what would happen? I guess Roberts.
You'd need a Senate vote, wouldn't you?
He could. No, the recess appointment. You see, the idea in the old days, they actually took normal recesses. Now they try not to recess. They try to have somebody. Right? McConnell would have tried to have somebody sitting there burning the midnight oil, so that the Senate would never recess. So he would have the position that it was invalid. And then I guess you would have had, Roberts would have had to swear him in or not swear him in. And if Roberts hadn't have sworn him in, I guess some, Sotomayor would have sworn him in, and he would have shown up. What would they have done? Roberts would have called the marshals and not seated him. He probably would have been seated. And he would have been, and then they would have tried to pay him back by never confirming him, right? And Merrick Garland would have figured that many chess moves ahead and figured, well, this is my chance to be on the Supreme Court for some months. But like that was just not something that Obama.
Right. It was not. It took a level of political aggression that Obama just didn't have. I think it's a really great point. The last thing I want to say about removing Trump from and you've kind of hinted at it, is, and I think you've all but said it explicitly, is, hey, if you do remove Trump, if you do just decide, because Kim's right, it doesn't have to actually be some kind of civil judgment or even, in a court of verdict. You just decide that he's an insurrectionist or that he aided insurrection or whatever you want to say. If you remove him, whatever Secretary of State that is, you've set a precedent, and you've kind of said this, David Katz, for Democrats to be removed. Joe Biden can be removed from states. I mean, they're going to argue. They don't have to argue anything in terms of a court case, as you suggested. They just have to decide and surmise, in air quotes, that Joe Biden is corrupt and therefore has violated the Constitution, and in that way he shouldn't be on the ballot. You see how it could really turn into an ugly mess.
I do, and it would be reviewed by a federal court. And so it's not like the Secretary of State's ruling, even in a blue state, would stand up. And of course, if it's in a blue state, that's a state that ultimately Trump is going to lose. So Trump's not going to be relying on winning Colorado anyway. I think the way it matches up now, the rubber really hits the road. It's always the same states: Arizona, Georgia,
Wisconsin,
North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Right? We have an election in 7 states.
All right, gosh, you're way over time. You've been great. Do you want to touch on Murdoch real quick, or is that interesting to you, or on the way out?
The only thing I want to say about Alec Murdoch down there in South Carolina is that I was with a federal judge, for about 14 months in Washington, D.C. We had a lot of trials. At the end of the trial, there's a marshal who stands up in the courtroom, and the judge reads a little script which says, "Do you swear that you will keep this jury apart from any outside influence, not let anybody speak to this jury about any matter whatsoever?" And I don't know, did that not happen? Was there not a marshal to make sure that this court clerk didn't tamper with anybody on the jury? Having said all of this, I don't think that he's going to be granted a new trial. I think they're going to say this was a harmless error. But of course, the defense is claiming in this request for a new trial for Murdoch, the man down there, the lawyer from the famous legal family in South Carolina, who was convicted, found guilty by the jury and sentenced for murdering not only his wife, but one of his sons. So it was a spectacular, tabloid type case that, a lot of people were watching all the time on TV. I don't think he's going to be granted a new trial, but it's just really remarkable that someone could tamper with the jury. And people were really shocked. If you remember, they went out on Friday around 6 o'clock and they came back at around 8 or 8:30. No one expected them to come back in 2.5 hours. And this court clerk supposedly said to them, we're going to put you in a hotel tonight if you're still deliberating after 11. And they said, put us in a hotel. Nobody warned us. We didn't even bring an overnight bag. So if she stampeded that jury and they can show that to a court. Also difficult to show jury misconduct, but I won't get into all of that. God only knows. I mean, this may be like a big flop, but I think at the end, no new trial.
No new trial. Okay. And again, it's not because there was no. It's not a double jeopardy situation. If you were acquitted, it would be double jeopardy situation. But not, isn't that right? So
yeah, he could get a new trial. But of course, it was
the evidence is overwhelming.
But Mark, anything could happen at a trial. You could have a hung jury. You could have something. You know what I mean? From the prosecution's point of view, they consider every conviction like a gem. They got it. They want to preserve it. They want to, fight like hell not to have a new trial, because anything can happen at a trial, even with a great weight of evidence, especially a hung jury can happen.
Boy, David, have I kept you over time. Thank you so much. The great David Katz joins us on Thursdays. Thank you, sir. You're so generous with your time. And let's just review again. Katsadamas says there will be a no 14th Amendment. I thought you also had a prediction on the.
It will not succeed. It will not succeed in any state. It will not keep Trump's name off the ballot for the nomination or in the general election in any state, in my opinion. And also, I think Cheeseborough, you might get some action on whether his case gets severed and he gets actually found not guilty. Right. Don't bet any of your hard-earned money on Sidney Powell to win anything.
All right, David Katz, thanks so much, my friend. David Katz, everybody.
Kim, I'm glad I didn't have you. Kim, I'm glad I didn't have you in moot court. Kim, I'm glad I didn't have you in moot court.
Yeah, Kim was tough today.
Oh
Kim
no, I'll fall to Katz every time, but I'll go down
trying.
I
don't know about that.
Thanks, David.
Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson?
Thompson, party of four.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. We're wrapping up here. Thank you for smashing the like button. In the land of YouTube, the thumbs up is king.
Smashed it with your iron rod.
So thank you for smashing it with your iron rod, giving us a thumbs up. Again, if you missed the beginning of the show, the big news is that, and I kind of look like I'm in coffee cup land. We love coffee in my home.
Look at all those cups. I just noticed. Wow.
Yes, we're festooned with the magic of coffee cups. And some of these coffee cups are the sticker from the merch store. This is just a sticker, but it fits really well, and the stickers are really great. Like the adhesives and whatever. I don't know what's used, but anyway, so these cups, a lot of them have that, and you can mess with the stickers and have fun with them. But anyway, bottom line is we love coffee, and so Coachella Valley Coffee is responding to your demand or your request for a decaf. And we wanted a show decaf, one that is the show. And so they actually worked to come up with this decaf from Peru. It's dark chocolate and almond, and you can see it's a medium roast. And it's delicious. The Why Are You Yelling decaf from Coachella Valley.
That's cool.
Find it, get it. They sell it, I think, in 2-pound bags, and then that's a 5-pound bag that you're seeing there. Why Are You Yelling decaf?
Order this. They're going to have to order more. They're going to have to make more. They're going to be like, what's going on with the Why Are You Yelling decaf?
It is true. Supporters of the show, and you will support our sponsor. There it is, the Why Are You Yelling. So what you do is you click on the Why Are You Yelling decaf, get yourself a bunch, 2 pounds or 5 pounds if you have a big family or you like a lot of coffee. Yeah. And you can drink it any time of day or night because it is decaffeinated. Yeah. The Why Are You Yelling decaf, put in our discount code at checkout. MarkT is the discount code, and you will get 10% off. Again, CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. MarkT at checkout for 10% off anything, not just the decaf. Order all the coffee you want, order merch if you want, whatever you want on that site. 10% off at checkout with the discount code MarkT. So, Thanks, Coachella Valley Coffee. We're very proud to have our own decaf, I will say.
The Mark Thompson Show.
There's been a high-profile divorce, my friends, and it's been expensive. Billionaire Robert Earl Holding's daughter, Anne, being told to pay $200 million in a settlement to her ex-husband.
What?
Oh. Yeah. It's the billionaire's curse. When you break up, it's going to be expensive.
Ouch. Is there no prenup in this case?
Oil and ski resort heiress Anne Holding is appealing this court order to fork over what is the most expensive divorce payment, payout. I mean, she hasn't begun her payments yet, but you understand. Most expensive divorce in Wyoming history. She was married for 40 years. They look so happy.
Oh, how nice.
Mom and Dad look so happy. I just...
Someone did this to spoil our Christmas.
Well, Christmas is not... Those are Christmas sweaters. They will likely not be posing for another picture wearing them together
they look
anyway.
Like they could be in The Sound of Music.
Yeah. Well, it's the sound of payments now. Holding is arguing before... her name is Holding, before the Wyoming Supreme Court, that the lower court wrongly ordered her to pay more than $202 million to her husband, Christian Peterson. The 67-year-old, one of 3 children of the Mormon billionaires Robert Earl and Carol Holding. They built or operated multiple companies, including Sinclair Oil. Do you know?
I don't know Sinclair Oil.
Oh,
I know Sinclair
huge.
Broadcasting.
They're huge.
Yeah.
Peterson, who shared Holding, filed for divorce on November 23rd. There it is, yeah.
We don't have those here, Sinclair gas stations. Do you
I
have them in
think
Southern California?
We do.
No, we do have them.
I haven't seen them in here in the Bay Area, but okay.
No, all right. Listen, you want to challenge Tony on this?
Thanks, Tony.
You want to go to the mat on this?
I'm not challenging anybody else.
All right. She hasn't blocked anybody, so she wants that she turns on her own. This is how that works, right? I can't get angry at anybody in the chat, so I'm going after Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
Anyway, the deal is done, but she's appealing it. At the time of the divorce, the Petersons' net worth was about $6.15 million. His wife's net worth was about $602 million. And that didn't include the $462 million in assets in a trust. So when you add that all together, it's north of $1 billion, obviously. And she has been ordered to pay $202,581,208. That's half of the stock her family gave to her throughout the marriage and half of another smaller investment. 40 years they were together, Kim.
Do they have kids?
I believe they do.
So, I mean, eventually it's all going to the kids anyway, right?
Eventually, but there's a lot of living to be done before eventually kicks in.
Oh, that dude looks pretty old.
I mean, well,
What?
How dare you?
Saying.
How dare you?
I don't know how much living is left.
I think he looks good, actually.
Okay.
He's going to look even better once he gets that big bank account going with his wife's money. Look at him. He looks good. What are you talking about, Kim?
Oh.
I was going to recommend, if anything happened to your marriage, that you ring him up. He looks good. He's, again, about to come into a lot of money. They share 3 children. Okay.
Yeah. 40 years of marriage, that's a lot.
Oh, wait a minute. She is one of 3 children. I don't know if they do have any kids. Oh, hang on a second. Oh, 1 second, everybody.
Uh-oh. Yeah, that's I don't know, that 200. What do you need with 200?
No, they do. They have 4 kids. They have 4
okay.
kids. Yeah.
See?
All right.
That's fine.
So,
divide the money, and then it all goes down, trickles down.
She looks so happy. Look at her in that picture.
They all look happy.
It's almost as though these pictures don't reflect what's really going on inside.
Why are they getting divorced? What did he do?
Oh, it's his fault?
I knew you were going to say that.
How do you know she wasn't the problem?
You think she's having an affair with the pool boy?
I can tell you that Kim always takes her side, Larry. The truth is, she might have been a problem.
He's off behind the rock fireplace there looking at the,
At the maid?
What can you
At the
tell us about the
housekeeper.
scene?
I don't
Yeah.
know. Well,
I don't know.
there's
What's
a
the
reason
what's the real
that this
story?
place is fun. Okay.
Who's at fault? That's what I want to know.
All right. Well, you may want to look. These are public papers. They probably have in this divorce settlement. That's how we know about it. They have not only the amounts of money, but there might be some specifics on the marriage, and I would recommend that you get into that and maybe report back to us. They both had thoughts of divorce for years prior to their official separation in 2018, Kim. I'm drilling down for you so you don't have to do the heavy lifting.
Marriage.
Yeah.
She must know that she must have known that when they split that she was going to have to pay out the wazoo. That's why they stayed together.
Oh,
she was like, I'm not going to leave him. It's just not worth it because it's going to cost me a mint.
That's exactly it. I'm going to stay here and hang on to my money.
Ooh, it's a wild idea, but it just might work.
It did work for a few years. The Holding family behind ski resorts, Sun Valley, Snow Basin. They also own hotels, 400,000 acres of land, and Sinclair Oil. That's a privately held company that drills for oil and gas and operates refineries and pipelines. The fortune was created by her dad. And after he died, his wife Carol and the 3 children took over the business. Their family is worth $2.5 billion, according to Forbes. And Robert died, and then everybody moves up in the family. And I'm just looking to see.
I'm not alone. Look, Calvin wants to know, was he a cheater? Right? I mean, come on.
Carol, her husband's frequent business partner, raised the potential sale of Sun Valley, which had fallen into disrepair.
Julie says he looks like a playa.
He does. He looks good, I think. Well, I'll tell you something. Breakups are never happy. And I'm not happy about this one. I'd hope that those kids would be together. A sort of earthly mortality that would be, I would think, joined with a kind of romantic immortality. Yeah.
Well, hopefully they go on
Sad.
to find their happiness.
Yes.
You know?
You go for the quick hit the minute you're divorced? You go for a wild weekend with some 26-year-old? Is that what you're going to do?
Both of them could do it, you know. Anne could do it just as easily as he could.
Vicky and Tiburon is not wrong, as opposed to Vicky and Sausalito. Vicky and Tiburon writes, if it was the wife getting a settlement after 40 years of marriage, no one would think 1/5 of the man's assets was too much. She's not wrong.
No.
Vicky, you're not wrong. Yeah.
How about Randy, who oftentimes has good information? How about it for Randy in the chat? He's the one that sued for divorce, Mark. If he was cheating, why would he file for divorce to get the big payout? Well, apparently they both consider divorce, Randy, as I noted. This is in court papers or in reports around it. They've been, since 2018, they've kind of hit choppy waters. But why would he sue for divorce? Because he needs some money to spend on that young chickadee chick that he's going to be hanging out with. That's why.
Vicky
The
and
whole thing is
Sausalito
sickening. Yeah.
Says if he cheated, he shouldn't get the money. You know what, though? It's a no-fault thing now for most states, isn't it? Where they don't care who did what, just split the assets and off you go.
Yeah, it's simple mathematics.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is a very never happy when billionaires break up, but it does happen. So we wish them the very, very best. As we wrap up,
The Mark Thompson Show.
I do want to recognize a couple of key people who remind me that we do this show for you. We do. And when I say you, I'm talking about you, Tony. We do it for you.
Thanks, Tony.
Yes. So, Tony, first of all, I want to congratulate you on redoing the PayPal and Patreon stuff. You really did a nice job on that. That's your job, but still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing is without criticism.
What happened? Mark, I was glad that Tony finally added me to the closing credits.
Thanks, Tony.
But it lists me as still being Trevor in Concord. Don't misname me, Tony. Well, to be fair to Tony.
Thanks, Tony. I go by the name that's on this, that's in
exactly.
there.
He goes by the name that you made the contribution. So if you're a Patreon contributor as Trevor in Concord, then you are Trevor in Concord. And you know what, Trevor? Don't go so Hollywood on us that you won't remember Concord, dude. Let's have a little love for Concord, even though you're Trevor in Hollywood now. Look at you, dumping the Bay Area the minute you see the bright lights, the big cities, celebrities in Hollywood. Wow. Anyway, Trevor, you're Trevor in Concord on this show, unless you, if you keep supporting us on Patreon and PayPal, we'll get to changing it. But this month, you're Trevor in Hollywood. By the way, Trevor,
I'll make a note.
Yes,
and thank you for the $5, Trevor. We appreciate it.
Of course, we appreciate that, and big shout out.
Big shout out.
What else do I have to? I actually do have something else with Trevor to get to, but I don't think I'm going to have time. The Lady Beatrice, come on, Lady Beatrice. The best part about this is that Trump is getting himself into deeper crap just by playing victim on social media. Is it wrong? I'm enjoying this. Yeah, he does play victim. He's a big, the politics of grievance. Victim, that's really what he does, you know. That's his thing. He does everything right.
I did everything right, and they indicted me.
Yeah, exactly. But big shout out. Thank you, Lady Beatrice. And thank you so much for the $5. Pinky with $1 a day. Thank you,
Big
Pinky.
shout out.
We're wrapping up here slowly, I know. Wes, thank you for a $5.
Big shout out.
Thank you, Wes. You're great with the super sticker. Super sticker, super chats. We're crowd-funded. We appreciate it.
Show note. I
what's
did
that?
get an apology message from Robert Scoble. He said he messed up. He was on Twitter Space. He got double booked. He thought it was the same show, but it wasn't. And so he has apologized to us. So that means I think we give him one more shot.
All right.
His first mistake, yesterday was my fault. Today is his fault. Who knows what happens next time?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's tricky. Booking these people, it's never easy in this business. Where is that, it's never easy in this, it's no picnic.
This is no picnic, no summer camp.
No, but it's never easy in this business.
I've told you, it's never easy being in this business.
That's the one. All right. So I didn't get to the drops that Trevor sent me. All these drops of Kim. We don't really... I see 2 of them that could actually live to see another day, but we'll play all of them for you tomorrow in the first half hour of the show. Because tomorrow's our Friday show. Jim Avila, Michael Shore, and analysis. And Tony comes back tomorrow.
Thanks, Tony.
Woo!
Yeah, very exciting. Tony back on the horse. So Kim is doing her After Party Live show over on the After Party Live station. Right here on YouTube.
We'll do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Exactly. They are doing it live. So that's going to be cool. Thank you for all the ways you support us, everybody. And tomorrow, big show, Florida, political analysis, and the culture blaster, Michael Snyder.
Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
And I promise those drops with Kim in the first half hour. Thanks, everyone. Till tomorrow. Bye-bye.